In the vast reaches of space, humanity had finally made its mark. Earth had established colonies on several planets, and its influence was growing. The United Nations had formed an intergalactic council to ensure peace and trade across the stars. Andrew Carter, a skilled diplomat, was chosen for one of the most important missions of his career. Andrew was tall, confident, and calm in the face of challenges. He had worked on many difficult negotiations, but nothing could have prepared him for what lay ahead. His mission was to establish an alliance with the Orcs Empire, a powerful alien civilization known for its strict matriarchal society. The Orcs were fierce, intelligent, and incredibly resourceful. They had watched humanity's rise with interest, but had not yet made any formal contact. The Orcs' capital was located on a planet called Ixera, a world of stunning beauty with tall spires of stone, wide oceans, and a sky full of swirling purple clouds. It was a place of ancient tradition and deep-rooted customs. Andrew arrived with high hopes, but also nervousness. The stakes were high. Securing the alliance would help protect Earth's colonies, but failing could lead to devastating consequences. When Andrew landed on Ixera, he was met by a delegation of Orcs officials. They were tall beings with pale, almost glowing skin and sharp features. Their eyes glowed a soft amber, and their voices were calm yet commanding. The leader of the delegation was Queen Ixtara, the ruler of the Orcs Empire. She was known throughout the galaxy for her wisdom, strength, and fearsome leadership. Queen Ixtara was magnificent. Her presence filled the room the moment she entered. She wore flowing robes made from shimmering fabrics, and her golden crown gleamed in the light. Her eyes met Andrew's with an intensity that made him feel as though she could see straight into his thoughts. Despite her intimidating appearance, she welcomed him warmly. "Welcome, human diplomat," she said, her voice both strong and graceful. "I have heard much about your people. You are ambitious and quick to adapt. We shall see if these qualities are worthy of our alliance." Andrew nodded respectfully. "Thank you, Your Majesty. It is an honor to be here. I look forward to discussing how our two civilizations can work together for mutual benefit." The discussions began immediately, with both sides presenting their goals. Andrew outlined humanity's desire for trade, protection, and the sharing of knowledge. In return, the Orcs wanted access to human technology and resources, as well as a promise of loyalty in times of conflict. Everything seemed to be going smoothly until the third day of negotiations. Queen Ixtara called for a private meeting with Andrew, away from the rest of the delegation. She had something important to discuss, something unexpected. When they were alone in the Grand Palace, Ixtara's expression grew serious. She looked at Andrew with a gaze that felt both calculating and curious. "I have been thinking," she began, "and I believe I can offer you a way to secure our alliance." She paused, letting the silence stretch between them. Andrew raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean, Your Majesty?" Ixtara stepped closer, her eyes never leaving his. "I will not settle for a simple treaty. No, humanity must prove itself worthy to stand with us. A formal alliance requires something more personal." Andrew felt a knot form in his stomach. "Personal," he repeated, unsure of where this was leading. Ixtara smiled, but it was a smile that held no humor. "Yes, personal. I offer you a chance to become my second consort. A marriage between us would solidify the bond between our two nations. As my consort, you will have a position of power, influence, and respect among my people." Andrew blinked in surprise. This was not what he had expected. In human cultures, marriage was often a deeply personal choice, driven by love and mutual respect. But here, on Ixera, it seemed to be a political move, a way to cement alliances and strengthen nations. The Orcs valued such unions, not for romance, but for their practicality. I don't know what to say," Andrew stammered. "I am here to discuss an alliance, not marriage." Ixtara tilted her head slightly. "I understand your hesitation, human, but you must understand our ways. This is how we do things. If you wish for peace and cooperation, you must be willing to accept our customs. I offer you a choice. Join me as my consort and unite our people, or leave without the alliance you seek." The weight of her words hit Andrew like a storm. He had not come here expecting to become part of the Queen's personal life. But the situation was clear. If he refused, humanity's hopes of securing an alliance with the Eutherics would vanish. If he accepted, it would mean forever changing his life, stepping into a role he had never imagined. Andrew stood in silence, his mind racing. The future of humanity depended on his decision. And yet, the question of his own future, his own desires, remained unanswered. "Please," Ixtera said softly, almost as though she could sense his inner turmoil. "Take your time to think. But know this, I have seen the potential in your people. If you choose wisely, we can create something great together." As Andrew looked into her eyes, he realized that his journey had taken an unexpected turn. What began as a diplomatic mission had now become something far more complex, an alliance between two worlds, and a decision that would shape the course of his life forever. Andrew Carter stood before Queen Ixtara, still stunned by her unexpected offer. His heart pounded as he tried to process what had just happened. He had come to Ixtara to form an alliance, to negotiate peace and trade between Earth and the Eutherics Empire. But now he was faced with a choice he never imagined: to become the second consort of an alien queen. Ixtara's calm, golden eyes watched him closely. The room around them was filled with soft, otherworldly light. The walls were adorned with intricate designs that seemed to shift and move, and the air smelled faintly of sweet, strange flowers. It was a beautiful setting, but Andrew felt nothing but uncertainty. "I know this is not what you expected," Ixtara said, her voice as steady as always. "But this is the way of my people. A union of power and trust. There is no other way for us to form a lasting bond." Andrew opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. His mind raced as he considered the implications. Accepting this offer would mean more than just becoming part of the Eutherics royal family. It would tie humanity's future to the Empire in ways he couldn't fully understand yet. But if he refused, everything he had worked for on this mission could be lost. Finally, he found his voice. "Your Majesty, I appreciate your offer, but this is too much for me to decide in a single meeting. I came here to negotiate an alliance, not become part of your family." Ixtara nodded slowly. "I understand your hesitation, Andrew. This is a significant decision, and it cannot be made lightly. But know this, my people do not view marriage as a matter of love alone. For us, it is about strengthening bonds, forming connections that will secure our future. You have a unique place in the galaxy. You are not like the others who have come before you." Andrew glanced at the floor, trying to gather his thoughts. He had never been faced with such a heavy decision. His role as a diplomat had always been about finding common ground, about fostering peace through reason and negotiation. But now, peace meant more than words. It meant becoming part of something much larger, something that might change his life forever. "I will need time to think," Andrew said finally, his voice steady. "This is not an easy decision." Ixtara's expression softened, and for the first time, she seemed to show a glimpse of understanding. "Take all the time you need, Andrew. But remember, the future of both our people depends on the choices we make now. I do not offer this lightly." She stood and motioned for Andrew to follow her. They walked through the grand halls of the palace, the sounds of soft music echoing through the corridors. The palace was a marvel, a testament to the history and power of the Eutherics Empire. Tall statues of ancient rulers lined the walls, their eyes fixed forward, as though watching over the present. As they walked, Ixtara spoke more about her people, their customs, and the challenges they faced. The Eutherics were a proud and ancient race, their empire spanning countless star systems. They were strong, intelligent, and capable of great feats, but they were also facing an internal crisis. Their population was declining, and their gene pool was beginning to weaken. They needed new blood, new alliances, and new hope. "We have seen many species in the galaxy," Ixthera explained, "but none like yours. You humans are adaptable, resilient. You are not bound by the same limitations that others are. That is why I offered you this position. It is not just about political strategy. It is about survival. The Eutherics need strength. We need something more than just resources or technology. We need a future." Andrew listened carefully, trying to understand. He could see the weight of responsibility on Ixthera's shoulders. She was not just a ruler. She was a leader struggling to secure her people's survival. The offer she made him was not just an alliance. It was a plea for help, a desperate attempt to save her civilization from a slow decline. The more Andrew thought about it, the more complicated the situation became. He knew that if he refused, it might not just end the alliance with the Eutherics. It could lead to war. A war that Earth might not be prepared for. But agreeing to marry Ixthera, to join her as a consort, would change everything about his life. He would be tied to an alien empire in ways that no human ever had been before. As the tour of the palace continued, Andrew's mind remained clouded with doubt. But one thing was clear. If humanity was to survive and thrive in the vast expanse of space, it needed strong alliances. And sometimes, those alliances came at a cost. Later that evening, after the tour, Ixthera invited Andrew to a private dinner. The table was set with foods from across the galaxy. Strange fruits, exotic meats, and dishes that Andrew had never seen before. They sat across from one another, eating in silence for a time. Andrew tried to focus on the meal, but his thoughts kept drifting back to the decision he had to make. "Andrew," Ixthera finally said, breaking the silence, "you will not make this decision alone. My people are watching, waiting to see if you accept the future I offer. But do not think of it as just a marriage. Think of it as a partnership, a way to build something greater than what either of us could achieve on our own." Andrew looked up, meeting her gaze. For the first time, he felt a sense of clarity. This wasn't just about politics. It was about the future, the survival of two peoples. He had come here to secure a future for humanity. But now he realized that in order to succeed, he would need to embrace the unknown. As the dinner came to a close, Andrew knew he had to make a choice. He didn't have all the answers yet, but one thing was certain. The future of Earth and the Eutherics Empire was in his hands. The days that followed were filled with uncertainty for Andrew. The decision weighed heavily on him, clouding his thoughts at every turn. Queen Ixthera had given him time to think, but the more time he had, the more complex the situation seemed. He had come to Ixthera to negotiate an alliance, not to become part of the royal family. Yet the more he learned about the Eutherics, the more he understood that this wasn't just about politics. This was about survival for both their people. Andrew spent his days walking through the grand halls of the palace, meeting with various Eutherics officials, and learning about their culture. He studied their history, their struggles, and their strengths. The Eutherics were an impressive species, strong, wise, and proud. But their society was on the brink of collapse. Their population was dwindling, and they needed new blood, new alliances, and a way to secure their future. At night, he would return to his quarters and think about what Queen Ixthera had said. He knew that rejecting her offer would mean losing the chance at an alliance with one of the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. But agreeing to her proposal meant becoming part of a foreign culture, a queen's consort in a land he barely understood. It was a choice he couldn't take lightly. It was then that he realized something important. He wasn't just representing Earth anymore. He was representing humanity's future. This decision wasn't just about him. It was about every person back home, every colony on distant planets. If humanity was to survive and thrive in this vast galaxy, it needed allies. Strong, powerful allies. And the Eutherics, despite their struggles, could provide that. But Andrew was not the kind of person to rush into decisions. He knew he needed to approach this carefully. If he was going to accept Ixthera's offer, it had to be on his terms. He wasn't going to be a pawn in a political game. He would play his own part. The next day, he requested a meeting with Queen Ixtera. When he entered her chambers, she was sitting by a large window, gazing out at the purple skies of Ixtera. Her golden crown gleamed in the soft light, and her presence filled the room with authority. "Your Majesty," Andrew began, trying to steady his nerves, "I've had time to think about your offer." Ixtera turned to face him, her amber eyes searching his face for any sign of hesitation. "And I understand the importance of this alliance," Andrew said carefully, "but I cannot accept your offer just like that. It is not a decision to be made lightly. You spoke of partnership, and that's what I want to discuss." Ixtera raised an eyebrow. "A partnership," she repeated, her tone curious. "Yes," Andrew continued. "You are right that our people need each other, but we must find a way to make this work for both sides. I can't simply be your consort. I must be an equal partner in this. Humanity has its strengths, and we can offer more than just technology and resources. We can share our knowledge, our ideals, and our will to survive." Ixtera studied him for a moment, her expression unreadable. Then, slowly, she nodded. "You are wise, Andrew. Perhaps I underestimated your resolve. Very well. If you wish to be an equal partner, then we shall discuss the terms of this alliance further. But understand this, I will not accept failure. If we are to unite our peoples, we must do so with strength and certainty." Andrew felt a weight lift from his shoulders. He had made the first step toward shaping this alliance on his terms. He wasn't going to be forced into a position he didn't want, but he also knew that this was just the beginning. There would be many more discussions, many more challenges ahead. Over the following days, Andrew and Ixtera spent more time together. They discussed everything from military strategies to cultural exchanges, trying to find common ground. They didn't always agree, but the conversations were productive. Ixtera was a fierce leader, but she was also intelligent and open to new ideas. Andrew found himself respecting her more with each passing day. He also began to understand the gravity of her position. As queen, she carried the weight of her people's future on her shoulders. She was not just a ruler. She was a protector of her species. The Orcs had faced many challenges over the years: wars, rebellions, and the slow decline of their population. But despite it all, Ixtera remained strong, focused, and determined to find a way forward. One evening, as they sat together in the royal garden, Ixtera spoke candidly. "You know, Andrew, many outsiders believe the Orcs are a proud and arrogant people. They do not understand the struggles we face. We have been forced to fight for survival in ways you cannot imagine. The future of my empire depends on finding new allies, new hope." Andrew listened carefully. He had always thought of the Orcs as a powerful empire, but he was beginning to see them in a different light. They were not just conquerors or rulers. They were survivors, just like humanity. And in that moment, he realized something important. This alliance wasn't just about gaining power or influence. It was about helping each other survive in a galaxy that was often cruel and unforgiving. "Your people are strong, Your Majesty," Andrew said. "And I believe that together, we can build something even stronger. But we need to be honest with each other, and we need to work together as equals. If we do that, I think we have a chance." Ixtera's eyes softened for the first time. "You have a good heart, Andrew. I see why your people value you. Perhaps this alliance will be more than just politics after all." As they spoke, the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the garden. Andrew realized that while he had come to Ixtera as a diplomat, he was now something more. He was part of something larger than himself, an alliance that could change the course of history for both humanity and the Orcs Empire. The days passed, and the negotiations between Andrew and Queen Ixtera continued. They had found a rhythm, working together to shape the future of their alliance. However, there was still much to be decided. Both sides were eager to move forward, but they had yet to agree on the terms that would bind them together in a lasting and meaningful way. Andrew knew the stakes were high. He had come to Ixera to secure an alliance for Earth, but now the future of both their peoples rested on the decisions they made. Queen Ixtera had agreed to allow him a voice in the negotiations, but he still felt the weight of her authority. The queen was a force to be reckoned with, strong, confident, and unyielding in her pursuit of what she believed was best for her empire. One evening, as the sun set over the beautiful city of Ixera, Andrew was summoned to the palace's grand hall for a private meeting with the queen. This meeting, Ixtera had said, would be the turning point, the final test to see if humanity was truly worthy of an alliance. When Andrew entered the hall, he was greeted by Ixtera herself, her regal presence commanding the space. She wore her usual flowing robes, and her golden crown shimmered in the dim light. She gestured for him to sit at the large table in the center of the room. "Andrew," she said, her voice calm but filled with purpose, "we have spoken of many things over the past few days: trade, technology, knowledge. But there is one thing we have not yet discussed. The true test of any alliance is trust, and trust must be earned." Andrew took a seat across from her, his mind racing. He had been expecting more discussions about trade or military cooperation, not something as intangible as trust. But he knew better than to question the queen's logic. The Eutherics valued loyalty above all else, and their word was law. If they were going to form a partnership, they needed to prove they could trust each other completely. I understand, Your Majesty," Andrew replied. "But what do you mean by trust? What is this test you speak of?" Ixtera's amber eyes locked onto his, her gaze sharp and unwavering. "We must see if your people can be trusted to follow through on your promises. You speak of cooperation, of working together for mutual benefit. But we need to know if you are truly committed to this alliance, if you are willing to do what it takes to protect both our civilizations." Andrew felt a knot tighten in his stomach. This wasn't going to be an easy test, but he had come this far, and he couldn't back down now. He had to prove that humanity was capable of standing side by side with the Eutherics, no matter the cost. "I am ready to prove that," Andrew said firmly. "What do you need from us?" Ixtera smiled, but it was not a warm smile. It was the smile of someone who knew the weight of the challenge ahead. "I will give you a task, Andrew. A mission, if you will, a test of your loyalty. You and your people will help us secure a nearby star system. It is a strategic location that will provide us with the resources we need to survive. We have already secured part of the system, but there are still hostile forces that threaten our claim. If you can help us eliminate these threats, it will prove that you are worthy of our trust." Andrew took a deep breath. This was not what he had expected. He had come to negotiate peace, not fight battles. But he knew that this was part of the test. If he refused, it would be seen as a sign of weakness. If he accepted, it would prove that humanity was willing to fight for its allies. "Understood," Andrew said. "We will do what is necessary." Ixtera nodded, her eyes still studying him. "I expect no less. The Eutherics are a proud people, and we do not take our alliances lightly. This mission will not be easy, but it will show whether your people are truly worthy of our trust." Over the next few days, preparations for the mission began. Andrew worked with the Eutherics military to develop a plan of attack. It was a delicate situation. One wrong move, and the entire mission could fail. But Andrew had trained for moments like this. He had faced difficult decisions before, and he was determined not to let this one slip away. The target was a group of hostile aliens who had taken control of a vital star system near Ixera. The Eutherics had already begun a military campaign to reclaim the system, but resistance remained. It was up to Andrew and his team to help secure the system and eliminate the remaining threats. As the days passed, the pressure began to mount. Andrew found himself working long hours with the Eutherics military strategists, coordinating with human ships and soldiers to prepare for the upcoming battle. It was a test of both his leadership and his ability to work with the Eutherics forces. When the day of the mission arrived, Andrew stood on the command bridge of a Eutherix warship, looking out at the vast expanse of space. His heart raced as the fleet prepared to move into the enemy-controlled system. He knew that this mission was the key to the Alliance. If they succeeded, the Eutherix would see humanity as a trustworthy and capable ally. If they failed, the entire future of their partnership would be in jeopardy. The fleet jumped into the star system, and the battle began. Andrew watched as the ships of both sides clashed in the blackness of space. Explosions rocked the battlefield, and the sound of weapons fire filled the air. It was a brutal, unforgiving fight, but Andrew remained focused. He had a job to do, and he would see it through to the end. As the battle raged on, Andrew realized that this was more than just a test of loyalty. It was a test of humanity's ability to adapt, to work alongside other species for a common goal. And if they succeeded, it would prove that humanity was ready for the challenges of the galaxy. The battle raged on. Andrew stood at the command bridge of the Eutherix warship, gripping the edge of the control panel as the fleet plunged deeper into the heart of enemy space. His heart pounded in his chest, the tension in the air thick and palpable. The sight of the vast, star-strewn battlefield before him sent a chill through his bones, but his focus was sharp. He couldn't afford to let fear take over now. The enemy ships, a mix of hostile aliens that had been terrorizing the Eutherix, appeared like shadows against the backdrop of the stars. Their ships were fast and maneuverable, but Andrew had no doubt that with the combined strength of Earth's forces and the Eutherix military, they could win. Still, this wasn't just a fight for power. This was a test of humanity's ability to stand side by side with the Eutherix. If they failed, the future of their alliance, of both their peoples, would be in jeopardy. "Commander Carter, we are entering the kill zone," the Eutherix officer at the station beside him reported in a calm, professional tone. "The enemy ships are deploying. We are ready for your orders." Andrew nodded, feeling the weight of the moment. His mission was clear. They had to help the Eutherix secure the star system by destroying the remaining enemy forces. This was no ordinary battle. It was a battle for the future of an entire civilization. "Begin evasive maneuvers," Andrew ordered, "and lock weapons onto their lead ship. We need to take down their command vessel first." The Eutherix fleet moved with precision, following Andrew's orders without hesitation. The battle was fierce, with laser blasts lighting up the void and explosions ringing out across space. The enemy ships retaliated with deadly force, but Andrew could see the Eutherix forces working in perfect sync, a well-oiled machine. He had been trained for situations like this, but nothing could have prepared him for the chaos of a real battle. His mind raced as he watched the situation unfold on the control panel. Ships exploded in flashes of bright light, and debris floated in the cold silence of space. Andrew kept his calm, issuing orders and making decisions that would either lead to victory or disaster. The hours seemed to blur together as the fight continued. Andrew worked tirelessly, coordinating attacks and defenses, communicating with Earth's fleet, and ensuring that the Eutherix forces remained focused. But despite all the chaos around him, he never lost sight of his goal. This battle was about more than just winning. It was about proving that humanity could be trusted. "Enemy command vessel is down," the officer at the station called out. "They're retreating." "Sir." Andrew exhaled, feeling a wave of relief wash over him. But the battle wasn't over yet. The remaining enemy forces were still scattered across the system, and they were not giving up easily. It was time to finish what they had started. "Prepare for pursuit," Andrew said. "We don't want any of them escaping. We finish this now." The Eutherix fleet surged forward once again, moving with terrifying speed as they pursued the last of the enemy ships. Andrew's mind was sharp, every decision precise. This was his moment to prove that humanity wasn't just a race of diplomats and negotiators. They could fight. They could stand tall in the face of danger. They could protect their allies, no matter the cost. As they chased down the remaining enemy ships, Andrew could see the Eutherix fighters closing in on their targets. The final wave of hostile ships tried to make a run for it, but they were no match for the combined might of Earth's technology and the Eutherix forces. One by one, the enemy ships were destroyed, their bright explosions lighting up the darkness of space. When the last ship was neutralized, Andrew allowed himself a moment to breathe. The battle was over. The star system was secure. And more importantly, the Eutherix had won. But the victory didn't feel as sweet as Andrew had expected. It felt like only part of the equation had been completed. He knew that the real test wasn't just about winning battles. It was about building something stronger. He had led humanity's forces into battle beside the Eutherix. And now he had to make sure that this victory was the beginning of something more. As the Eutherix ships began to regroup, Andrew turned to the officer beside him. "Have we received word from the Queen?" he asked, his voice calm, but with a sense of urgency behind it. The officer nodded. "Yes, Commander. Queen Ixtera has been informed of our success. She requests that you meet with her immediately. She wishes to speak with you in person." Andrew felt his heart race once more. This was it. The moment he had been working for since he arrived on Ixtera. The moment he would either solidify his place in the Eutherix alliance or lose everything. As they made their way to the royal palace, Andrew's mind raced with thoughts of what Queen Ixtera might say. Would she be pleased with the outcome of the battle, or would she have more challenges in mind? One thing was certain. The next steps would be crucial. The royal palace stood tall against the backdrop of the starry sky. As Andrew entered the grand hall, he saw Queen Ixtera waiting for him, her regal form bathed in the soft glow of the palace's light. She looked at him with a mixture of respect and expectation. "You have done well, Andrew," she said, her voice steady, but with a hint of admiration. "Your people have proven that they can fight for what is right. You have earned our trust." Andrew felt a sense of relief flood through him. It wasn't just about the battle anymore. It was about the future of humanity and the Eutherix. Together, they had proven that they could overcome obstacles, fight for each other, and protect the galaxy from those who would threaten them. "This is just the beginning, Your Majesty," Andrew replied, his voice firm. "We will continue to stand with you, to fight for your people and ours. Together, we will face whatever challenges come our way." Queen Ixtera nodded, her eyes filled with resolve. "Yes, Andrew. Together, we will build a future that neither of our peoples could have achieved alone." And with that, Andrew knew they had taken the first step toward a brighter future, one where humanity and the Eutherix could stand united, not just as allies, but as partners in a new era. The days after the battle were filled with triumph and celebration. Andrew had earned the trust of Queen Ixtera and her people. The star system was secured, and the Eutherix were now looking to humanity as a true partner. Yet even with the victory behind him, Andrew couldn't shake the feeling that something more was lurking just beyond the horizon. He had proven himself in battle, yes, but he knew the Eutherix had their own secrets. The Queen had been kind, even respectful, in her words of praise, but there was a weight to her presence that suggested a deeper burden. As the days passed, Andrew began to see it more clearly. Something was troubling the Queen, something that went beyond the alliance or even the survival of her people. One evening, after a long day of negotiations and meetings with military leaders, Andrew found himself walking the halls of the royal palace alone. He needed time to think. The stars outside the palace windows shone brightly, and the cool night air seemed to settle his restless mind. But as he wandered, his thoughts were interrupted by a soft voice calling his name. "Commander Carter." He turned to see Queen Ixtera standing in the doorway of a private chamber, her golden crown gleaming under the soft light. Her expression was serious, but there was a subtle warmth to her gaze. She gestured for him to enter, and Andrew followed without hesitation. Inside, the room was quieter, more intimate. The walls were adorned with intricate tapestries, and the air was filled with the scent of exotic flowers. Ixtera was seated at a large table, her back straight, her demeanor regal and composed. But Andrew could sense that she was troubled. "You summoned me, Your Majesty?" he asked, his voice steady but curious. Ixthera nodded, her fingers tracing the surface of the table in front of her. "There are matters that must be discussed, matters that go beyond the alliance." Andrew felt a shift in the air. The Queen was always composed, but now there was an undercurrent of something heavier. "What is it, Your Majesty?" The Queen's gaze flickered to the window, where the stars seemed to stretch endlessly into the night. "The Utherics have survived many hardships over the centuries. We have fought wars, faced betrayals, and weathered storms that would have destroyed lesser civilizations. But the greatest enemy we have ever faced is not the one that comes from the stars. It is the shadow of our own past." Andrew furrowed his brow. "What do you mean?" Ixthera turned to him, her amber eyes filled with a mixture of pain and determination. "There is a faction within our own people, a group of dissidents who believe that the Utherics should not ally with other species. They see any partnership with humans as a betrayal of our traditions. They believe that the Utherics should remain isolated and fight to reclaim what we have lost, rather than seeking help from outsiders." Andrew could hear the tension in her voice. This wasn't just political, it was personal. Ixthera had been the queen of her people for many years, and it seemed as though the weight of her responsibilities was growing heavier. "I didn't know about this," Andrew said, his mind racing. "Are they a threat to the alliance?" Ixthera sighed, a deep, weary sound. "They have always been a threat. They are a powerful faction, and their influence grows with each passing day. If they are not stopped, they will tear the Utherics apart from the inside. And if that happens, any hope of a lasting alliance with humanity will be lost." Andrew felt a knot tighten in his stomach. He had known that the Utherics were a proud and independent people, but this was something different. If there were internal divisions like this, it could spell disaster for the future of their partnership. "Is there anything I can do to help?" Andrew asked, his voice filled with sincerity. Ixthera looked at him, her eyes searching his face for any sign of hesitation. "There may be a way, but it will not be easy. I need you to help me expose the faction's true intentions. I cannot do it alone. I have already lost too much trust among the people because of this group. If we are to survive, we must act swiftly." Andrew's mind raced as he considered her words. This was a new kind of challenge, one that went beyond military tactics or diplomacy. It was a test of trust, loyalty, and leadership. If he helped Ixthera, he would be risking everything they had built so far. The dissidents could turn the people against him, just as easily as they could turn them against the Queen. But if he didn't help, it might tear apart the fragile alliance they had fought so hard to establish. "I'll help you," Andrew said, his voice firm. "Tell me what needs to be done." Ixthera studied him for a long moment, and then slowly a small smile crossed her lips. "Thank you, Andrew. You have proven yourself in battle, but now you must prove your loyalty to the Utherics people. This task will not be easy, but I believe that together we can overcome this threat." Andrew nodded. "We'll face it together. What do you need me to do?" Ixthera leaned forward, her voice dropping to a whisper. "There is a meeting taking place in 2 days. The dissidents are gathering in secret, and we must infiltrate their ranks. I will send you the details. You must find out what they are planning, and if possible, convince them to stand down before their plans reach the point of no return." Andrew felt a chill run down his spine. Infiltrating a group like this would require careful planning. It was a dangerous mission, one where trust could easily be broken. But there was no turning back now. "I'll be ready," Andrew said, his voice resolute. Ixthera stood and walked over to him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You are more than just an ally, Andrew. You are becoming a part of our people's future, and together, we will shape it." With that, Andrew left the Queen's chambers, his mind heavy with the weight of the task ahead. The alliance was on the line, and he knew that this mission could change everything. The tension in the air was almost unbearable. Andrew stood in front of the secure meeting room. his mind racing. The task Queen Ixtera had set before him was dangerous, too dangerous. He had to infiltrate the dissidents, discover their plans, and, if possible, persuade them to stop their rebellion before it could tear the Eutherics apart. Failure wasn't an option. The fragile alliance between humanity and the Eutherics hung in the balance, and Andrew knew the fate of both civilizations rested on what happened in the coming hours. He couldn't help but feel a sense of urgency gnawing at him. The Queen had trusted him, and now he had to prove that he was worthy of that trust. But there was more at stake than just his own honor. If the dissidents succeeded in their rebellion, the alliance would crumble, and both humanity and the Eutherics would be left vulnerable to their enemies. This mission was about the future, not just of the Eutherics, but of both species. Andrew took a deep breath and stepped into the meeting room, his heart pounding. The space was dimly lit, and the air was thick with the scent of burning incense. Several figures were already gathered around a large table, their faces obscured by shadow. The dissidents. They were a mix of Eutherics nobles and military leaders, all united by their desire to overthrow the Queen's vision of a united future with humanity. Andrew felt the weight of the situation settle over him. He had to be careful. One wrong move, one slip-up, and everything could fall apart. He took a seat at the far end of the table, his eyes scanning the room as he tried to gauge who was in charge. The leader of the dissidents, a tall Eutherics noble with dark green scales and a cold, calculating gaze, spoke first. "You've come at last, Commander Carter. We have been waiting for you." Andrew nodded, keeping his expression neutral. "I'm here to listen," he said. "But understand this, I am not here to betray my people. I believe in the alliance." The dissident leader smiled, but it was a bitter, humorless smile. "You are naive, Commander. The alliance is a weakness. Your people don't understand what they're getting into. We, the Eutherics, have fought for centuries to keep our independence. Why should we throw that away for a race of weak humans?" Andrew could feel the venom in the leader's words, but he refused to be drawn into the emotional argument. Instead, he focused on the facts. "You don't have to like the alliance," Andrew said, his voice steady. "But you do need to understand what's at stake. The galaxy is filled with enemies who want to see us both destroyed. If the Eutherics fall, humanity falls with you." The dissident leader's eyes narrowed, his sharp gaze studying Andrew. "And what makes you think the humans will keep their word? Your people have already shown their true colors. You will abandon us the moment it becomes inconvenient. Mark my words, Commander. This alliance will only bring your species to ruin." Andrew didn't back down. "You're wrong," he said firmly. "Humans stand by their allies. I'm proof of that. We fought beside you. We've helped secure the systems you need. If we wanted to betray you, we would have done so already. But we haven't, and we won't." The room was silent for a moment, the tension rising. Andrew could see the dissident leader weighing his words, his icy expression betraying a flicker of uncertainty. But the group around the table seemed resolute, their beliefs unwavering. "I can't change your mind, can I?" Andrew asked quietly, his gaze steady. The dissident leader shook his head. "No, Commander, you cannot. But there is another way. You may not want to betray your people, but we are willing to offer you a choice. Join us, and we can ensure your survival. Refuse, and you will become our enemy, just like the Queen." Andrew's pulse quickened. This was it, the moment where his loyalty would be tested. He could walk away from this meeting, go back to the Queen, and tell her everything. Or he could join the dissidents, turning his back on the alliance and on everything he had worked for. The decision was his to make. But Andrew knew what he had to do. He had seen enough to understand that the Eutherics needed the Queen's vision. Isolation would not save them. Only unity could. The dissidents were blinded by their pride, unwilling to see the truth that Queen Ixtera had already recognized. The Queen had made sacrifices for the greater good, and Andrew knew that humanity's future was tied to the success of the alliance. "I'm not joining you," Andrew said firmly, his voice clear and resolute. I believe in the Queen's vision. I believe in the future she is trying to build, and I will stand by that. The dissident leader's expression darkened. Then you are a fool, he spat. You will regret this decision. Andrew stood, his heart steady despite the tension in the room. I'll take my chances, he said, but I'm leaving now. You're not going to tear apart what we've built. Not on my watch. He turned to leave, but the dissident leader's voice rang out one last time. This isn't over, Commander. We will see you again. Andrew didn't respond. He didn't need to. He had made his choice. As he left the room, he knew that the hardest part was still ahead. The dissidents wouldn't give up easily, but neither would he. The battle for the future of humanity and the Eutherics was far from over, and Andrew was ready to face whatever came next. When he reached Queen Ixthera's palace, he knew what he had to do. The Queen was waiting for him, her eyes filled with concern. They know, Andrew said. They won't stop until they tear us apart. Ixthera nodded, her gaze filled with determination. Then we must be ready. Together, we will protect this alliance, no matter the cost. And so, with the future of both their peoples in their hands, Andrew and Ixthera prepared to face the challenges ahead, knowing that they had made the right choice and that their partnership would be the key to survival in a galaxy filled with danger.